Hi, and welcome to 15 Minutes of Consulting Best Practices. I'm David A. Fields. And for those of you who are wondering, where's Maria Isabel? She will be back next week. And if you're new to this and you're wondering, who's Maria Isabel? Come next week because she'll be back next week. All we do here is we just answer your questions. There's nothing else to this. 15 minutes, you give us questions and we will answer them. So type your message in the chat. John, welcome back to you also. Hope you're all well and had great 4th of July for those of you who are 4th of July, and great Canada Day for those of you who are Canada Day, and all of that. So ask questions, okay? While we're waiting for your questions to appear, Deidre, I know there was one from last week that I didn't get to, and you put it in your magic bag of questions. So what was it? Aha. What if no one is doing what I want to offer? After years of research, I have learned about successful models for growing local economies. Okay, that sounds cool. But no one is offering them as a system, and communities don't know what they don't know. Should I look for a fellowship to prove my theory that a system approach would work, or start a consulting practice? Those seem like somewhat disparate options, but there's a lot in that question. So let's unpack that question a little bit. There's just like all sorts of stuff. And happy for, thank you, Shankar. If you have a theory on what would work, then, and it's just a theory, then you're best off testing it under conditions where your clients will know it's just a theory at this point. So, it's kind of an overall rule that you can tell them it's a theory, but if you're going to actually get clients for it, let them know that you haven't proven it. Okay. I think the bigger question here is whether you should go into a market where the clients or the communities don't know they have the problem and no one is solving it. And the answer to that is, it depends, of course. So here's my general rule. As a general rule, your first instinct should be to not enter empty spaces. They're usually empty for a reason. If your town's like our town, there are like 15 pizza restaurants in your town, and there's no haggis restaurants. And that does not mean you should open up a haggis restaurant, which may be the most unappealing idea I've even thought of in quite some time. So note to self, don't encourage anyone to think about haggis. And apologies if you're Scottish and watching this and you love haggis. Most of your town has probably never even heard of haggis, and there's a good reason for that. If you open up the 16th pizza restaurant in your town and you have some reason for people to visit your pizza shop, you'll probably do okay. So you are better off going where there's already a market than going to an empty space, especially where people are unaware of it. Okay, that's my overall, and that's a long way of saying be very, very careful about going into these spaces where there isn't proven demand. If communities aren't aware of this, they don't know what they don't know, trying to educate them is usually an exhausting, expensive, not fruitful approach. So we don't recommend that. Now, are there exceptions? Of course, there are exceptions. There is an occasion where you spot an opening where clients are consistently complaining about a problem and there's no good solution being offered. And if you hear that constant complaint from the market and folks are saying something like, this is costing us a fortune, or something similar to that, right? Really strong buying signals, then give it a shot. And you can use your first client as a collaborator to help develop your offering. We have a client, we have two clients right now. We have one client that went from 0 to 4 million in about 2 years based on hearing that sort of opportunity. And another client that went from 0 to 7 in basically 1 year, the same way. So it's possible. It's just really rare, and you have to be careful. Okay, so that's my long answer to that question. And if you're on, and if Colleen, if you're still on, what does that raise? And for anyone else, what other questions does that question raise? Let me see what's in here. John, we just had a big win with a sourcing event for a well-established and friendly client. What is the best way to publicize it and get new opportunities from other similar companies? LinkedIn posts, emails, prospects, something else. Okay. So the unrelated question. So we'll move over. Any questions on the should I enter new markets? Post them, just like John has posted a question. All right, John. Congratulations on the win. That is outstanding. So good on you. Should you publicize it? The first of all, that depends a little bit on whether your client has said it's okay. A lot of clients don't want to let the world know that a consulting is helping them solve a problem. So first things first, are you even allowed to say it? If you are, LinkedIn post that says, we're super happy to be partnering with, Haggis International to help them promote haggis to the rest of the world, or to increase haggis supply. If you don't know what haggis is, you might want to look it up. I'm vegetarian. I wouldn't touch it anyway. It's not something you want to. I hope there are no haggis consultants. Setting that aside, John, it's okay to create a post. The real way you publicize it is in your conversations with prospects. You can say, look, this client we just won is very similar and blah, blah, blah. Or the client that just started is similar in doing all these things, because it's social proof. And as prospects are talking with you, the big question in their mind is, are you for real? Are you legit? Would other people buy from you? And when you say, well, this other client just signed up and they're doing something similar, it creates enormous proof and relieves some of that anxiety. And so I think actually the best way to publicize it is in your conversations, your one-on-one conversations. Or if you're in a podcast, on a webinar, you can mention it in passing. And you don't have to name them. And Jenny, you know what haggis is. Excellent. So we have a whole community that knows it. And if anybody likes it, I apologize. Any other questions? Jenny, I'm just starting my journey. Would love advice on finding prospects. I'm starting my market efforts, but it's been going slowly. All right. So we have a whole book on that. The Irresistible Consultant's Guide to Winning Clients. And so I don't have a quick answer to how do you find clients, other than starting with the people you know. If you are brand new into consulting, you're just starting your journey, there are a couple things I would advise. One is you take on subcontracting work, because you want to be in motion. Work begets work. Projects beget projects. When you are already working, it's kind of like with John, where John can reference another client that he's working with. That automatically makes you more attractive. It also makes you more confident, and you will be more likely to recognize opportunities and to respond to opportunities with confidence that attracts clients. So you want to be working. So take on subcontracting work, 100%. Also, if there's no subcontracting work to be had, or you still have extra capacity, take on pro bono work. For the same reason, pro bono work gives you practice. It lets you be in action, and it will boost your confidence because you're still creating value. The fact that you're not doing it for money, doesn't matter. Now, typically we would suggest you take on pro bono work for an organization that would not otherwise be able to pay, usually a nonprofit or some organization like that. So don't take on a legitimate client, someone who should pay, for no money just because you don't have project work. That's a bad idea. But if there's some sort of organization you have passion about and want to help them and can help them given your talent and your expertise, jump on that. John is giving advice. There's also Institute, the IMC, right, that offers resources and ability to connect with other consultants, which is excellent. And there's you can look on all sorts of staffing platforms also. Perfect, excellent. You are connecting. Any other questions from the gallery here? If so, post it. This is excellent. We should have time for at least one more. Deidre, while we're waiting, we must have another one in your magic bag. We do. When you offer 3 alternatives, like bronze, silver, and gold, well, I would do bronze, silver, and gold, but that's okay. Do you vary rate or just the scope and terms? All right. That's it. The way that's phrased is interesting. So that's a fun question with a whole bunch to talk about. So first of all, what we would call an alternative is a combination of scope and terms. It's a bundle. And when you offer three alternatives, you can vary the scope of the project, which is the most common way consulting firms develop alternatives. But you can also vary terms or contract tuning keys. And there are 14 contract tuning keys that you can pretty easily tweak, of which only one is scope. And there's probably more than 14, but there are 14 that we pulled together for easy reference and are in my first book, which most of you probably don't have, but it's the Executive's Guide to Consultants. The 14 project keys, contract tuning keys are laid out in there. For instance, you could vary access to you or your consulting team, how much access or when they get access. You could vary publicity rights. You can vary the strictness of the timeline, because perhaps if you're bumping up against capacity limits as a firm, then giving yourself rights or options to take a vacation or to expand the timeline is a very, very inexpensive way to build capacity. You're basically creating a call option on capacity in your alternative. Right, so there are lots of sophisticated and interesting ways you can vary that bundle of terms and your scope. Now, that said, you asked about rates. I'm not a big fan of rates, and I think that the vast majority of you who are listening, either live or on replay, should avoid rates because they reinforce this idea that, and it's an idea that's wrong in my opinion, that the basic unit of consulting is an hour. Or perhaps a day, right? Some unit of time that people are buying. This idea that that's the fundamental unit of consulting. And so you have a rate for that. But that's not the basic unit of consulting. The basic unit of consulting is a dollar of value created. So that's a very long way of saying, no, don't vary your rates. You do vary the value you create, and therefore you vary the fee you charge, but not some underlying idea on rates. I hope that makes sense. Any questions about that? Did that make sense to everyone? Give a yes or a no. And if you have another question, put that in there. And if not, Deidre, I've got what, a minute and change? I can do another one in a minute. We're having phone calls with prospects, but we're not converting the opportunities because the people we're talking to don't have a budget. What should we do, Gene? All right, Gene. Ouch. I don't know if I can do this in a minute. I'll do the quick version of this. Okay. You're talking to folks, so that's good. Good on you. You're having conversations. Conversations is where projects appear. And there's no budget. There's two possibilities here, and I'm not sure which one you're encountering. So if you're here, you can tell me. One possibility is that there's money in the organizations you're targeting, but you're not talking with the decision maker or the person with high enough budget authority. So that could be the case. Or the other case might be that you're talking with decision makers that have budget authority, but for some reason the market is depressed or soft, or that market's not buying for some reason. For instance, right now the innovation market is generally down. A lot of strategy consultants are having a tough time in this moment of time because consulting runs through cycles, right? It has to do with the macroeconomic environment. So if you could tell me which scenario that would help, I only have a few seconds. If in the first case where you're not talking with the right buyer, elevate yourself to the buyer, ask for an introduction to the decision maker that does have budget authority, which is pretty straightforward. And it doesn't have to be, introduce me, I'll go talk with that person. It could be, let's together have a conversation with the person that has budget authority. And if the person with budget authority doesn't have urgency, then you've got a different challenge. If, on the other hand, you're in a down market, then you have to make a judgment call as to whether it's a temporary dip, it's temporarily down, and you want to wait it out, or if you think it's long-term and you don't want to wait it out. If you want to wait it out, then go where Jenny's going, which is, take some bread and butter work, take subcontracting work, take whatever you need to keep the lights on. And if you don't want to wait it out, then you need to pivot to a different market. And that means doing problemeter work, right? Finding out what's the urgent need. I hope that all helps. And we have just whipped our way through our 15 minutes. So thank you for spending 15 minutes with me. Before you go, a couple of quick notes. If you don't have Monday Live there, Deidre put it up, Monday Live in your calendar, just put it in your calendar for every Monday. That way you come back and visit with us. If you're not subscribed to the articles, subscribe to the articles. There's been lots and lots of comments. People are engaged, so come look at them. And other than that, thank you all for being here. Have a fabulous week. Always remember, consulting is not about you. It's about them. It's about your clients. It's about your prospects. So give them value and give them kindness. And I hopefully Maria Isabel will be back from vacation next week, and she and I will see you then. Take care.